Another child is welcomed to the world, but this child, like all other children, must learn his racial identity. An identity that is defined with every ritual, every song, every dance. The child grows, and the ways of the community are even more ingrained. When at last he crosses the threshold separating childhood from adulthood, what rituals define his place in the world, the role of the Manobo? Through other rituals of life, through marriage, through the hunt, the harvest, and the building of homes, life goes on, and generations continue to pass on their knowledge, each one continually redefining their place as Manobos in a rapidly changing world. What does it mean to be indigenous and have ethnic identity? How does it feel to journey through life, continually defining and redefining the world through rituals that celebrate the ethnic spirit? In this edition of Travel Time, we journey to Agusan to live with the province's most famous indigenous group, the Manobos. Through their rituals, their songs and dances, we discover the essence and vibrancy of the Manobo spirit. A spirit that, like all ethnic identities and worldviews, has a place and a contribution to make to the tapestry of human life. I'm Susan Calo Medina. Join me in this edition of Travel Time as we discover how it feels to be Manobo. A child is born to the Manobos of Minangkig in Agusan Sur. Shortly after the birth, the village comes to welcome the child to their world, a world where the Christian God now rules. But it is also a world where the old faith in the Diwatas, the unseen spirits of the land, blends with the Christian faith to create what the anthropologists call a syncretic religion, a faith where the belief in the Christian God is overlaid with belief systems and rituals of the indigenous culture. The ritual that welcomes this child into the world is the tagunon, a baptism that welcomes the child into the Manobo world. An intrinsic part of that world is the belief in the Diwata, the unseen spirits who could be both malevolent or benevolent. To speak or call out to these spirits is an essential part of the Manobo belief system, and every ritual that marks the cycle of Manobo life is marked by this essential feature, the panawag-tawag, the calling of the spirits.
No, naanada na din.
We usually perform the tagunon ritual when we baptize our children. This is meant to prevent the bad spirits from hurting our children and to make our children free from any ailments.
The tagunon begins when the bailan or medium builds an installation that represents the cradle, the child, and the essentials of Manobo life, a sinekat, a hanging cradle of split bamboo.
Then the bailan makes the pajo or the tao-tao. This is meant to divert the bad spirit from the child, so that the bad elements that are intended for the child will just go to the pajo. The pajo is then placed on the sinekat. The bailan also places toys on the sinekat, such as yugyo or kampilan, sakudo or inuman, buyak or flowers,
The entire installation is laid out for the spirits. The bailan addresses them and asks them to play with the doll instead of with a real child. Then a chicken is sacrificed. And its blood marks a cross on the child's head. No other gesture conveys the syncretic faith of the Manobo as much as this cross of blood anointed on the head of a child.
Ako naman dunga ko no pamanghugas ko kanit sa ini do pamalibong ko ko to dumano no sikion sa ini amantigo o manghingat kanit sa o kana ko og kang kakwai o suak no kana no og batangan kabalatian hasa ini abata pilahin ko di.
The doll is fed with the chicken's flesh.
Papakaunong kaya boy pakagat oh pakada so kang ka ingat og isuka ka di ko sa bago ikaw.
And the entire installation is hung outside the house of the family. Throughout all the rituals of the Manobos of Minangkig, the same elements appear in various forms and guises. The bailan calls out in a panawag-tawag to the diwata. The community builds an altar or installation in which to offer them, and a sacrifice is offered. Though these elements may change in form, they are essential to the ritual, all which speak to the unseen spirits of the Manobo world, the diwata. In the indigenous faith, these diwata are the messengers of Megbabaya, the creator god. They can possess men and tell them what it is that they wish to know, but always they must be summoned through the different rituals that mark Manobo life.
To us, nobody has seen God, but every time we ask help from Him, He answers us or gives us what we need.
And so yet another child is born into the Manobo world. When we return, we discover the sights and sounds that tell him that he is indeed a Manobo. There is an old African saying that it takes a village to raise a child. It is a universal truth that is reflected in the mountainous Manobo world, where the rituals of men and the seasons of nature create a unique geography of the mind. Minangkig is an isolated hill region in Agusan. Accessible by bangka only up the Agusan River and then by foot. The Manobos have lived here since time immemorial, just as they have in other settlements all over Mindanao. The Minangkig Manobos are part of the original stock of Proto-Philippine or Proto-Austronesian people who came from South China thousands of years ago. While the Islamic groups like the Magindanaos and the Maranaos settled the plains, the indigenous people like the Manobos, the Blaan, the Talaandig, and the Bagobo were pushed further and deeper into the hills and mountains. Thus, the Manobo child, born in Minangkig, will grow up seeing these, the rugged hills and valleys surrounded by forest and jungle, where his parents practiced slash-and-burn farming. He will acknowledge as his political leader the Datu, in this case, Datu Kahikayan, who inherited his title from his father. The child will meet the bailans of his community who will preside over the rituals. These, aside from his parents, are the figures of authority in his village.
Siya nahimo nga dato tungod kay gisaligan siya sa tribo, sa katawhan, sa
One
sakop
is
sa
a datu
komunidad, sa
because of the
kapatiran.
good things that one does for the community,
Nahimo ako og husay,
such as settling
anang
conflicts
mga
or cases
patay,
regarding the taking of somebody's wife,
inilugay,
sector boundaries,
kanang mga
and attending the needs of the community.
inilugay sa asawa ug inilugay sa sektor. Ang trabaho sa dato,
A datu is just like a mayor.
mayor sa usa ka
He
lungsod.
decides the cases according to our cultural ways of settling cases.
In tribal societies the world over, these dual roles of political and spiritual leader often converge in one person. In Manobo society, the roles are distinct, for while the Datu may actively participate in the Panawag-Tawag rituals, he must first and foremost be a Bagani, a warrior who defends his people. In ancient times, the Bagani was not only a defender, but an aggressor as well, and his status and the people's respect for him grew out of his ability to take the lives of his enemies. This is no longer expected of Datu Kahikayan, who inherited his title from his father. No longer the Bagani, tribal aggressor and defender of traditional Manobo culture, Datu Kahikayan must now lead his people into a changing world.
Kanang akong pagkadato, buhi pa si Dato Tagliong Kugit. o
When
si
the old
Dato
datus of
Kahusayan
our community,
Mendoza,
such as Datu
si
Tagleong
Dato
Kugit,
Magsaksak,
Datu Magsaksak,
Dato
and Datu
Tilhak
Kahusayan
Kugit,
Mendoza
magulang ni Dato
were still
Tagliong,
living, they
gihimo
conferred
na ko
me
niya,
the rank
bunyagan
of
ako
a
nila
Datu
nga usa ka
because
dato,
I'm the only
kaya ako
one
lang ang
whom
anak
they
nila
thought
nga
could
kasunod
follow
sa
their
ilang trabaho,
footsteps.
ilang binuhatan. Karon pizza
On the 29th of
29,
June,
ang ilang
the
pagturo
Tribal
na sa
Council of
ako,
Elders in our community will
tibuok
formally
nila
install
sa
me
ilang
as their ruling Datu.
hatag sa ako.
They
sa
will
pagka-
then call me
supremo
as
dinhi,
their supreme Datu.
pagkahimo nga hari dinhi sa among tribo. Kining gilang
The land where I rule as a Datu
kuan,
is a civil reservation
Crispin
given to me by the
604
government
hectares
in 1982.
nga yuta nga
It
gihatag sa
covers
presidente
about
gawas kining
3,604
among mga
hectares.
ancestral domain. Ang trabaho sa dato subra
For
pa
me,
sa mayor.
the role of a Datu is harder
Kay
than that of a
ang
mayor.
mutabang lang sa mga
A mayor
baryo,
attends
mga-
only to general problems of his municipality,
Pero ang akong
but a
pagkadato,
Datu attends
bisan
even
sa
to the
gamay
smallest
nga butang,
problems of his constituents in his
isampu
tribal
natin
area,
ang dagom.
like providing them with needles or spears for their homes, assigning leaders in their individual sectors, and bringing their problems to appropriate agencies in Manila. This also includes attending to their medical needs and facilitating the bringing home of their dead relatives from faraway places. Be it big or small, a Datu takes care of all the problems of his people.
Ako gihapon ang muadto, musitor, mutabang.
In ancient times, the Bailan was usually a woman gifted with the power to communicate with the spirits. Today, it is a man who holds spiritual power over the Minangkig community. In present-day Manobo society, a man is often both Datu and Bailan. But in traditional society, the roles were separate and distinct. Today, a Datu may be more inclined to fulfill his political role, while another Datu may be more renowned as a Bailan. These are the men and the separate roles through whom the Manobo child will experience his culture.
Og buhat kan danto kan angod to sikan dutun og sazawan. Kung nagbuhat kan danto sikan kokona no pinalikat.
A baylan is one who can cure ailments and help those who are in need through the help of his diwata.
Likat to
A baylan must be a good person and who has a very powerful diwata. Usually, we inherit it from our parents who were baylan themselves. No one has the power to appoint a baylan except God himself.
The Manobo child will, doubtless, grow up in a world where t-shirts, jeans, and the disturbing military fatigues are becoming more the norm in community dress. These clothes only point to the influences that are changing the Manobo. But he will also see his elders dressed as his forefathers were. Some women still wear the traditional tube skirt woven of abaca fiber and the short beaded blouse. For the men, the traditional attire of the bagani, the red pants, and the shirt topped by the beaded taiban, a headband that denoted, in times past, that the wearer had taken human lives. But these are the vanishing symbols. More important, the child will see the land, his parents and their work, their faith and the diwata come together in a ritual like the tepag. An agricultural ritual, the tepag asks the spirits to bless the plot of the land that has been cleared. Simpler than other panawagtawags, the tepag calls on the diwatas of the mountains, the kakyadan, and ibabasok, who are in charge of protecting the fields and the farms from pestilence and wild animals. There are other diwatas in charge of the forest and the jungles.
Alang to mga ginikanan ko. May doon si ini diwata nog iningot tagbusaw.
The first diwata is called Tibusaw, one who eats blood and is really fierce. I think it is Satan.
Ikadua, may doon si
Second is called either by one of these names, Umegad, Teisukod, Suguyod, a very helpful diwata. Third is Inajaw, the diwata of the weather. It could cause thunder, lightning, and other weather conditions. Fourth is the Igbabasok, the diwata of agriculture. Fifth is Tagabayo, the diwata of sex or libido. When one has this diwata, if he is a man, women will be chasing him, either for love or just sex. Six is Sanggaanan, diwata for spirit from faraway places, even from foreign countries. They can heal human sickness and other illness.
But the Manobo cosmogony is not only made up of the creator god and the diwatas. There are encantos too, darker elementals who are more malevolent in nature. There are also the Umagad, a class of spirits made up of departed human beings. Early anthropologists marveled at the sophisticated cosmogony of the Manobo, who believed that each individual had 7 souls. In this hilly, rugged country, the Manobo may strike us as a colorful indigenous group, but the belief systems that live on point to a complex system that sees changing environment still bound together by the diwata and the rituals that summon them. All cultures have a distinct worldview, colored and shaped by the geography, the village, the people. And this worldview is best expressed in the myths and stories that help the child understand why he believes what he believes. We hear of the spirit of the Manobo world when we return. The child grows and hears the chants and the songs of his people, the songs and the dances that tell him the myths and beliefs of his people. Songs like the Uyaging, which tell of the origin of the Manobo and the folk heroes and ancestors.
Kuyan akan hindi na itaw yun lang sa natin kung po nasili ikaw ginaong song kan yan akan sukalamay na matuod ko na dang napag-ulaw ulay aong ko
The Tudum, on the other hand, is a chant that allows a freer form of expression. Aside from telling the community about the Diwatas, the Tudum is also a ritualized form of speech used to make commentaries.
Sukuna kay ko panina banyugo hontano duka banobo hontano anogog tayon tano yugung sambagon tai pao awad on kaig tadu kunopi ukaig yupug no tampo azos toka maza namanda asu untogin tu untanoli igong kagakodag tumbila hangan orad mog iling iling nuadad mog una angay sukonatad matag sabuton.
These forms are brought to play during the Manobo wedding ritual, the pangasawa.
Moral mga sulod.
The ritual begins with the offering of the dowry at the home of the Datu, where the two families come together. Again, both Datu and Bailan officiate in their respective offices. After the discussions are held between the families, a panawagtawag is held to call the Diwata to witness and bless the union. Beetle Chew serves to bind the union. As well as the sacrifice of a chicken, the blood of which is poured over the hands of the couple.
Agbay Jun. Agbay. Sabo kasi daw
Susi kang kaugban dito kuha po kang datong o sayo de kunto.
Then the elders of both the family and the village give their advice
Mga ugangan mga bayaw no bata kono kay tahudo no sikan.
Pog sinap na ita.
Pog sinap na ita.
Pero kung taong padon.
Alang usab.
Pamilin-biling ka na mga...
Panjan sebenarnya mga subay kulo ta kamulo ka pa salita kamulo sa tatsabutan jala hora wala pa buka kamulo pamanika ta tatjal sa gilahan ko
Ini no, wata, kalipay. Ingat dyan si itay tuya ay nakalimutan di magsupat si ini na maanan unitay.
and the ritual ends in communal drinking. It is a simple ceremony, one that seems to put more stress on the serious and somber side of marriage rather than on its joys of life's continuity. In every culture, the belief system is best expressed in the chants and movements that animate the belief system and make it a living visual expression. These expressions when we return. The Kaimunan is a celebration for a multitude of purposes. The Kaimunan begins when the agong is played deep into the night. The gongs echo through the valleys and the hills, summoning everyone to minangkig for the ritual. The following morning, the leading bailans erect a special altar called the Angkaw, where offerings are placed.
Sa paghimo sa kahimunan, kinahanglan magud natay offering baboy, manok ug unsa. When we perform the kahimunan, we have offerings. What we usually do is to make an altar called angko, made of bamboo, which is raised high above the ground. The offerings are placed on top of the angko so that people may not just touch them and suffer the anger of the diwata. This is also to prevent the encantos from touching the offerings.
Igatang pito ka sa na.
Ibatang po dito dyan, ibisir ba? Kanin man.
When the datus and the bailans have finally assembled their community and their offerings, the ritual begins with a panawag-tawag. The dasang, a special form of ritual communication, also helps to summon the diwatas. Then the agong ensemble plays.
Then the Bailan dances the Binailan. This is the moment that the Bailan becomes possessed by his own diwata.
Arat kay mo mo ginikanan tan itaw na ito pamaayon do kay. Kandim pat mas ino mo
Katuman daw ka mo. Sultit sanggaan ano.
sa libo ko din yung tatabang to.
Nalisaga din ay.
Natintas yun sa libo.
The agongs play ceaselessly as the other diwatas enter the bailans. The community gathers to ask the diwatas questions which the spirits answer. How will my crops fare? My daughter is sick. What must I do to gain the favor of the diwata? The questions are asked, and the spirits answer, their voices rising above the hypnotic agong. Here at last is the synthesis of both the spirit and the human world. The kahimunan goes on. It is attended not only by diwatas from the Manobo world, but by other spirits too. Lita is a deaf woman and sister to Datu Kahikayan. Suddenly, she too is possessed by diwata, who claims that she is from Monhon in the Visayas. Her diwata speaks in a lilting, charming English, tinged with mellifluous Visayan overtones.
Datu Kahikayan. Datu Kahusayan is already late. Wala na siya, wala na. Lisod man kaayo ang Diyos sa langit, ang hangat mutan aw ka na ito, gumaw ka na.
Oh, yang surat pagkaliwa.
Obligasyon.
May dong kwas amin mas itay sa nagbakasinon man. Pero yan lang kana ako nakalagan.
Oo, may kasodan piloy na ado.
Lita's spirit is markedly different for the foreign tongue that she adopts, as well as the different dance steps she displays. While Manobo dancing is marked by an earthbound shuffling of the feet, Lita's spirit shows off a swaying dance step that can only be described as akin to a hota or a balse. Then it is Datu Kahikayan's turn to be possessed. Earlier, the Datu, who was raised and educated a Christian, had intimated to us that he felt uncomfortable about stepping into his father's shoes. His father, Datu Kahusayan, had been a renowned bailan, but he himself feels uncomfortable about practicing the old faith. Still, it is his duty to both his father and his community, and albeit reluctantly, he allows the spirits to take over him. The procession is marked by the sacrifice of a large pig. The blood is drunk by the bailans. Datu Kahikayan, his reluctancy perhaps still lingering in his unconscious, cannot do what the spirits ask of him. His body resists. The Diwata leaves his body suddenly, and he is left calling out to his departed father. It is a sudden and dramatic moment when a man torn between tradition and change must take on a role assigned to him by the community. Then, one by one, the spirits depart, having answered the questions of the community. As things settle down, the community dances. A Kafgu soldier sheds his fatigues to dance the binaylan. Another couple displays the bayod-bayod sa dagat, the dance that imitates the movement of the waves. Yet another does the simbatang, a dance performed on logs. The spirits have spoken, and having had their questions answered, the community must and can now dance.
Isayaw na napod nila. Kuhaon dito sa taas, isayaw nila. After a while, if the food is ready, the offering will be taken out from the angko while the bailan dances as a sign of respect. The last part of the ritual is the hakyadan, which simulates the hunting of the pig. The guests and children who came would then eat the pig offered, and this marks the end of the kahimunan.
Ang bahin sa
We
problema
are
ma'am,
neglected
dinhi sa
by the
among
government.
sektor.
We have
Ang
needs.
una
We
nga
want to have
problema,
schools
kanang
with good
napasagdan
teachers.
kami sa mga
We want local
gobyerno.
teachers who are Manobos.
Nakita man nimo ni among
We lack
kansanan,
sustainable
wa man
livelihood,
isa ka puno nga
roads and transportation
lobby.
facilities.
So,
And these
ang among
projects should be
gimulo sa
continuing,
akong mga
not
tao,
just
sige
for a
nila
certain period, not
ireklamo
just
sa ako
handouts.
nga, ang akong damgogid din nga ma-develop
I
kami
dream
unta
of real
din, ma'am.
development and that peace and
Tanan kami
order
og sakto
may
nga
reign in my
ang
community.
The lives of the Manobo are built around the rituals which tell him who he is and what is expected of him in a world where the spirits and change are constant factors. Before we left, we visited with Datu Kahikayan the tomb of his father, the renowned Datu Kahusayan, whom he had now to emulate. It was a simple concrete tomb, a simple memorial to a renowned ancestor. At the gravesite, another panawagtawag was held, this time marked by extreme simplicity and nothing more poignant than a heartfelt prayer to the Diwatas and the ancestors, to those who would help the Manobos steer their ways through the changing times where spirits and ancestors would always have a place.
O yabion man ko namin nagda to sanggaanan itay ho o sukani kada mang gihapon kuntoon. Nagun ano o kanunoy nuda bantajan.
Naman ka kun tanong adakan
kuntoon.
na ikaw
Manambong mo kuha kumanginam ko. Dogi untuk. Kuha kani sa ini tagban mo ako maginom ko si pula.
O si talagon
Takot kay kan si ini.
Bahin to mga hatabo, mga disgrasya, ini mga kabataan kanito si ini. Naingat ko no, di katiyain na kalibutan di, bantayan ko. Na ko ino, kuan to mo kasamok.
Ada kambis. Kambis man sangat buangan.
To the traveler who longs for adventure, the Agusan landscape is indeed a picture of unparalleled beauty and challenge. From Talacogon, it was a pump boat that we boarded to reach La Paz. Along the Agusan River and then the Adgawan River, we sighted the floating homes of the river-dwelling Manobos. We reached La Paz after 5.5 hours.
Pagsimagya silatan pagyagwa tekan edo pagyajang temengemamang pigdamdam ku ikaw migtaga inop.
The following day, an outboard motor, a motorized narrow banca with no outrigger, took us from La Paz up the Adgawan River.
Migdugang kang kanay no kamingaw, uto na sakit at sikiyo no pagpano.
After 4 hours, we reached Tagakupan River. Then, it was a 300 walk from the junction of the two rivers to our next destination, the Motong Falls. The Diwata of Motong Falls is an important deity called by the Manobos in all their rituals.
Yabion mapaminagnaw kanhuni mga kayaw pagsimag jata silatan pagyagwa tekan edo.
From there, it was another 3 hours by outboard up the Bobonawan River before we finally reached Minangkig. By plane, by boat, by foot, by banca, it was a strenuous trip. But the beauty of the landscape was worth it all. With each trip, we were closer to the elementals, the Diwatas, and to the Manobos whose life cycles we had come to learn about.
Sa akong
The way I stand and appear in public, I cannot deny to them that I am a Manobo. Even the way I look and behave is very Manobo. A bad Manobo is someone who is ashamed of his culture. But wherever I go, in all functions that I attend, I always present myself as a Manobo who lives in Minangkig, La Paz, Agusan del Sur.
Knowledge of oneself is something we should not neglect, and the nurturing of such knowledge is an important function of our elders, our community, our country. It is a knowledge that provides roots, roots that give the child soul and expression, roots that give him wings to fly in a changing world that does not appreciate a different worldview. Sana'y mapanatili ng mga Manobo ang kanilang ugat na nagbibigay sa kanila ng lakas at kakaibang ganda. Sana'y mapanatili nila ang kanilang angkin na pagiging malikhain na siyang tunay na yaman ng anumang kultura. Ako po si Susan Calo Medina sa bayan ng mga Manobo, sa bayan ng Minangkig sa La Paz, Agusan del Sur, na nagsasabi, huwag maging dayuhan sa sariling bayan.